The second category is for a date night. So you're out with a significant other. What movie should you pull out? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Between the Lines, where we go beneath the surface of what we're studying. And today we're continuing our series entitled Off the Pulpit, where I have the chance and privilege to interview people in my life outside of their regular or their normal platforms. And so today our guest is none other than Pastor Moses. And so I'll just give the floor to him to introduce himself more.
Hello. Oh boy. Hi, my name is Moises Ruiz. I am the assistant pastor in the Red Deer Church, as well as the senior pastor at Epic Church, both in Red Deer. And yeah, we are really enjoying that, having fun with that. Some little additional info about me is I just got a puppy, and it's been a nightmare and the best thing ever. So those are the best things in life.
Oh wow, a puppy. What's the name?
Lucy.
Lucy, wow.
Named after Lucifer, Lord of Darkness.
So funny. Oh man. Okay, so thanks for introducing yourself. Before we dive into more questions, I just wanted to kind of break the ice more by asking you a few movie recommendations for specific categories. So
Yeah.
let's go with that. The first category is when you run out of things to watch on Netflix, what should you watch?
Oh, I'm a junkie for those ESPN top 30 things, and just go to those dumb sports documentaries. I don't know why. That's my go-to. Just inspires me. Or my top inspiration, like when I'm out, is a movie called Bat Kid. I don't know if you've heard about it. Have you heard about it?
No, I don't think so.
It's like a terminal kid, and he's going through chemo, and his make a wish is to be Batman for a day. So the city of San Francisco comes together, and they put like a whole thing for him, and like all the people that have played Batman come together as well, and like give him well wishes. It is like you can't watch that and not like be inspired. That's my go-to.
Nice. Okay, so the second category is for a date night. So you're out with a significant other. What movie should you pull out?
Well, I go classic. Gotta go Sound of Music.
Oh wow, Sound of Music.
The Nazis are coming. I'm dependable. The Nazis are not.
That's definitely a classic for sure.
You are 16. I am 16. I've said too much.
Yeah, I can't spoil the whole movie yet if they haven't watched it. Okay, next category is for when you want to restore your faith in humanity.
Oh yeah, you know what? I already said Bat Kid, so I have to do another one. The last chapter in the Avengers saga, where Tony Stark is.
That's a good movie, yes.
Yeah.
And the last category we have is just your personal favorite or your go-to movie.
My personal favorite right now. Okay. You know when those giant blue people in Avatar first came out, and I saw it the first time, I was like, this is the best movie ever. Then I'm like, you know what? That it never stays the best in my mind. And then I just rewatched it during quarantine after I ran out of everything, and I was like, still the best movie ever. And apparently they're making another one. So
yeah, I heard it's supposed to come out soon after like how many years, but yeah, I know it's in the works, so we'll have to stay tuned for the second one. All right. So that concludes our icebreaker questions. My first question for you is, what are some passions you have and how did you develop those passions?
One of my like fun passions was always in music. And I think I just always tried to tried to make myself musically uncomfortable, if that makes sense. So when I first got a guitar, the first thing I did, and I got a guitar at a garage sale, and the neck was like broken, so you had to like pin it back in order for it to work. And this was like before the internet, it was like dinosaurs. And anyway, you'd have to go to the library to get a book. And I remember the best advice I got was, if you see somebody who plays guitar, go to them. And so that's all I did. Like whenever there was like a song service going on, I didn't care. I just went, like, sat in the front row and tried to copy. Or like Afterglow at Berman. I don't know if they still have that or not, but yeah, that was a thing back then. So I don't know, my passion, at least for music, is just go to people that I know are good at it, are like, I just kind of want to emulate, and I just sit at their feet. At least for music anyway.
So how about some dreams or some passions that you wish you could make a reality, but were not able to? What was that experience like?
Oh, you're asking for like a fun failure. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, this is one that just quickly comes to mind is when I first got to working at Red Deer Church. I saw like the Berman experience was like their Vespers. I've always loved how Vespers is done. I always loved the idea of Vespers. And I thought that there was enough youth and like young adults going to RDC and stuff that a Vespers at Red Deer Church would be really good, because sometimes it feels like at Berman you have to be a student to kind of engage, or even though that's not true, right? But that's just a perception. So I went all out. I got bands together and I advertised, and the Vespers first. Nobody knows what a Vespers means, but still I went for it. And then I showed up and I ran this thing for like 3 weeks in a row. I got a grand total of like one person attending. And like the first time it was just the senior pastor who attended. And it was like no one else. And it was such a righteous failure. And my life is just full of those. And I don't know. I think because of that failure, then I started rethinking and maybe thought maybe a small group, and maybe that kind of led to Epic. I'm not sure, but it's one of those ones that really sticks to me. When you put your heart and soul, and you think it's such a good idea, and then in the end, it's like your senior pastor's like, after the first time, I'm bailing, and you're like, oh my God.
The only one that comes is the senior pastor. My gosh. But we learn from those experiences, and I think it's inspiring that your passion for music, even though it failed at that attempt, still kept like it. You didn't drop it. You just went for different avenues, tried different ways. So in a way, it's not really a failure, but yeah.
You're so good. Wow, so inspiring.
How about stories? So what was your favorite childhood story and why?
My favorite childhood, well, it's hard to say favorite. Oh, that's hard. One of my favorites is when I grew up in Calgary, and my parents would always buy us the season pass for Callaway Park, which is like an amusement park just outside of Calgary.
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, no, it's super sketch, which makes it so awesome. They had like a log ride and everything, and I just remember we would get the season pass, if you can call it that, and like, I don't know, we didn't grow up wealthy or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I remember that my parents every single weekend would take us out there, and it was like the whole day, and it wasn't, we weren't done until our feet were sore and we couldn't walk anymore, and us and myself and my sister would ask to go home, and then they would go, and like it was just like so many memories there. And now that I'm like a dad, and I'm like, man, that's a huge sacrifice, because I'm like tired all the time, and they gave up a free day so that we could have fun riding these sketchy rides, and we just had the time of our lives.
That's a really good memory and experience. It's so. How about when it comes to your son Zion? What are some of his favorite childhood movies or stories that kind of captivate you as well?
Oh yeah, he is the biggest Paw Patrol fan. I don't know if you've heard. It's like a bunch of heroic puppies.
Oh wow!
This really explains why we have a dog now, and they work with like a 10-year-old boy, and they're all very techie. But their whole thing is like teamwork and working with each other, and it's, I don't know, man, it's such a positive message. I grew up with like Care Bears and Inspector Gadget, which had no morals whatsoever, and like nothing mattered. But with this, they're like, he always wants to help people. Like when he's done, he's like, when somebody asks for help, I will help them. And it's gone to the point where the show will be playing, and I'll be like, man, that was a good episode. And I turn around and he's gone, and I've been watching it. I'm like, oh no, I don't think I'm getting smarter. I think I'm becoming more of a toddler. But yeah, Paw Patrol's the way to go. And their ethic of like rescue and helping people, putting others before yourself.
Nice. We need more shows like that. So let's debunk the science of stories. What makes a good story, or what makes it a powerful story? What different components are necessary to make a story kind of like memorable and something that can be experienced?
Okay, yeah. I think that for me personally, a story has to transform the main character. The person in the story, the people involved in the story have to be different people after the story. I think when you get into a story and it's like business as usual, hey, remember when we did this and we're like the same people and this and this, and then I'm just like, that's like a boring anecdote. But a real story is like, I don't know. I'll go back to my amusement park story.
Mhm.
Every single day that we went there, they have a roller coaster that goes upside down. And for me, it looked like death. But then you're like 6 years old. You don't know. Everything looks like that. And every time we would go, I would ask my dad, come with me, come with me. My dad's like a really, like, I wouldn't say, what would I say? Boring. I wouldn't say boring, but as close as you can. Like, he's just like, he's like a regular adult, right? And he's also like an immigrant. He just has no business for like excitement. Like, he's like, that's for other people. But I asked him and I asked him, and I remember that one year he just says, okay, this year I'm riding the roller coaster. And he went and he stood in line and he rode the roller coaster with me.
Mm.
And he wasn't like, if you write that in a story, there was a guy who couldn't be bothered. And then something in that, I don't know if it's like me begging or him wanting to connect with me. I think it's him wanting to connect with me because I don't think he enjoyed it, but he does it anyway. And it's something we still talk about today. So I think it's, to me, a key moment in the story is when a character is changed. Something happens to you where you do something unlikely and you're a different character at the end of the story.
No, yeah, I think I would have never said that, but I think that is a key component when a character has pretty much character development. They start off the adventure being some shy person, and at the end, they're like a conqueror.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? Like those
Yeah.
classic stories. Yeah, that's a really good point. Are there other things that come to your mind about like kind of what allows a story to resonate deeply with people? Do you think like we just relate to people that experience change or develop, or your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think I think also that one of the things that attracts us to a story is if you have a need. I think we all kind of have like an internal need or an internal set of needs or cravings or whatever you want to call it. And when we hear a story that kind of speaks to that, it's it's some like some stories just really gravitate to that. The other day I was reading like Beowulf, you know Beowulf, one of those like first original stories ever written down from mankind, or actually in English and stuff. And like, what is the need that it's speaking on? It's like it speaks to purpose, destiny, friendship, loyalty. Like if you just have one of those things that you grab onto, I think just the story can really grab you. And people just, I don't know, people kind of intuitively know how to do that. Like even in the media,
Mm.
like you don't care if the Canada's like in debt, but then when it says people losing homes because Canada's in debt, you're all of a sudden, well, I'm going to lose my home, and then all of a sudden you care about the most boring thing in the world.
That's true. Making it relatable to our own human experience, I think. That is huge, yeah. So for those who don't know or who are watching today's episode, Pastor Moses is a pastor for Epic Church, which is in Red Deer, Alberta. And Epic
Ah,
pretty much means story. And so could you kind of expand on the why and how for Epic Church?
yeah, sure. So for us, we we were looking at something that would that's very gospel centered. Primarily, we want to communicate the gospel of Jesus, whatever that looks like. kind of the context around it is, how do you communicate the gospel of Jesus in a way that makes sense, that is accessible? And looking at kind of a postmodern generation. And I know when you say postmodern and like 10 people, there's 10 different definitions. So we're not looking at like postmodern, like generation wide, la la la. Like that's a very specific, not quite there. We're not looking at like postmodern art, which is like a reflection on, like, it's really, when we say postmodern, we're talking about someone that doesn't believe in absolute truth, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So they used to be before that you could speak to someone and just say the Bible, and they would kind of assume, oh, that's a true thing. Or they believe that there's, there's one truth that applies to everyone. But nowadays, like, a postmodern perspective is, you have your truth, I have my truth. Let's all get along. Which, by the way, like, Canada is very, like, even our good friend Justin Trudeau there said that Canada is a post nation. Like, he went further to say that instead of saying postmodern, we are post nation. So we don't even, as Canadians, we don't even look at ourselves as like we're a nation. We're beyond nation. We're like global. So it's a very interesting perspective. So you wonder, like, how do you communicate to a generation like that, or to a mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just young people. There's old people that think like that. How do you talk to that? And the key that we found, and these are a couple of studies, were that postmoderns will always respect the story, and that stories are always true, no matter what we're talking about. Stories are always true because they connect with something deeper. So, for example, like Star Wars, true. Like, you don't argue. You're like, what? There's no such thing. No, it's true because it means something. Therefore, it's true. Therefore, your story is as valuable as my story. So our logic was, if we're gonna establish a place that talks about the gospel, you first have to communicate. And so let's communicate stories. You tell me your story, and I'll tell you my story. And then, if that's happening, what if God has a story that he's telling? And then we kind of launched the Bible, which is kind of interesting, that the Bible is 80% narrative.
Yeah.
And we're so obsessed on making, and I don't know who your audience is exactly, Sherman. So if I get preachy, just calm me down. But it's like, we get so obsessed with the 20%, which is doctrine. And all this other stuff. Whereas 80% of how God was communicating to us was always through stories. And then our unique Adventist perspective as well is, we think that the Adventist church is just uniquely gifted with the story from beginning to end of the great controversy, or, the plan of redemption. And no one else has that story. And we have it from beginning to end, and it's like God's story that kind of connects the whole thing. So with no judgment or, reservation, we just say, this is God's story and this is your story. What happens when those stories come together? And it's kind of that exchange of stories, that respectful exchange of ideas, which also kind of means I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just trying to, present you with the story of Jesus, which I think is what I think God was calling us to. It's not our job to convert people. I'm like, I'm going to convince you. You believe this. Oh yeah, I got you. It's more like we present the story of Jesus in a respectful manner. There's this two-way dialogue, and then the Holy Spirit does the rest. And so what kind of name do you give a thing like that, right? And for us, epic means grand story. Like, that's the story. Like the Epic of Beowulf, the Epic of Gilgamesh, like all these massive legendary stories.
Yeah.
And so we say, what about the Epic of God? And then your story becomes a critical chapter in the Epic of God. And when we really get into it, like, our whole mantra is to partner kind of in God's redemption of the world. So it's like every one of our chapters, every one of our lives is a story being told of like transformation and redemption. The most broken parts of our lives can actually be beautiful. And that's the long and the short of our name, Epic.
No, yeah, that's really powerful, kind of seeing like the intersect of God's story and our story, and how it's quite life-changing. Like you kind of said earlier, how one character develops change or goes through a whole new story arc or whatnot, and that's what makes a story so like, wow, it resonates with us, it inspires us. And so to see that, I don't know, it just blows my mind that in God's story, there's a chapter of like my name in it. You know what I mean? Like there's a
Yeah.
chapter where I'm like the main character in his eye, and it's just so crazy to think that. And yeah, very, very powerful stuff. So that kind of concludes all the questions that we had for today. Thank you again, Pastor Moses, for sharing with us and our audience. Thank you as well for being willing to do this. You have been an amazing mentor to me, and it has been such a privilege to also intern, I guess, at Epic Church as well. And so thank you again, everyone, for viewing. And that concludes our episode for today. We will see you guys next week.